What's going on, boys? It is day number 3 of reading through the book of Philippians. We are just about at the end of this series. We will be finishing up tomorrow for the series, and then we'll be jumping into a new series that I'll cover at the end of tomorrow's video. First and foremost, let's just say Happy Palm Sunday as we enter this Holy Week leading up to Easter. We have Good Friday coming up, so I really think it's good to start off this week very right and very in remembrance of Christ as we read in his teachings in the Gospels about his final days leading up to his resurrection on the cross. So we're going to be taking a look at two sections today. The first one's going to be talking about no confidence in the flesh that Paul's going to cover, and then he's also going to cover an example that we should follow about how we should go about using what we have currently and not trying to use stuff that we don't have learned yet. So going back to the first section and talking about no confidence in the flesh, we know as Christians that fleshly desires are things that affect us every day. There's these temptations that say, oh, I should go out and eat all this food, or I should go and, go to this party, or I should go do, drink these drinks, or go do this, or lust, or just whatever. But what we come to learn is that this sin that is within us, is this fleshly desire that we have. That's something that is, a part of our body that tells us that, if it feels good, then it's okay. So some people will say, well, if it makes me feel good, so it's okay. Like, I don't feel bad. Like, unless it makes me feel awful, then it's not okay. But what people don't consider is those long-term effects. People can think, well, in the moment, like, it feels great, but then they, wake up the next day and they feel all loopy and, sick to the stomach. That's what people don't consider. And so I want to read verse 7 that really kind of summarizes what it means for these fleshly desires, where Paul says, but whatever were gains to me, I now consider a loss for the sake of Christ. So basically he's saying, he's like, my previous fleshly desires, whatever I wanted to do, my human will wanted to do, are of no power to my life. They have no effect. They cannot propel me forward. The only thing that propels me forward is Christ. Christ is the only one that can propel me forward. Why? Because he was holy and he was good. He lived a sinless life. There is no human on this planet that has not sinned. If you say that you don't sin, you are lying. I am just going to be straight up honest with you. I sin. I'm a Christian, but the difference, again, and I've said this in past videos before, but I like to say it again, but the difference between someone sinning as a non-believer and someone sinning as a believer is that as a non-believer, it becomes kind of a norm to say, well, it's okay, it's, God will just forgive me, this and that. Whereas a Christian, if you sin, you're aware of that, and you say, okay, how can I, avoid, how can I approach this situation with a different point of view to say, okay, I want to better myself? Because here's the thing. One of the things that I think everybody feels, whether you're a believer or you're a non-believer, is when you sin, you feel this emotion of sadness and of just pure, disgust almost. I was having this conversation with my mentor earlier today, and we were talking about, things that affected us and, how we can pray for each other. And one of the things that, he shared with me and that I kind of shared on a similar note back is our past kind of, relationships, or not relationships, but connections to lust and pornography. In the past, people think it feels fine, but one of the things that, I came to the realization that, I would always tell myself, like, I'm not going to lust, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do this. You can tell yourself you're not going to do this, you're still going to do it. The reason for that is because you can't fix yourself with yourself. You can't try and fill this box with things that you can do. That's like trying to fill, trying to fill a strainer with water. Like, it's just going to drain right out. It's just going to drain right out. We don't need that. We can't do that. We can't, keep pouring water into the strainer. It just flows right back out, and then you're back to square one. But the important part of that is that, you feel, for me, especially with lust, is I always felt just kind of, and I'm going to be honest with you, I felt disgusted. I felt awful. I felt just ashamed of myself. Like, man, why did I just do that? Why why did I just do that? Like, I feel terrible. Like, what if someone's like, and then pops the question, what if someone saw you? And it's like, someone did. God sees that. Like, how, imagine, imagine what someone sees. But then again, you remember, you know, you have a way out. And it's not by fleshly desires. It's not by you saying, I'm going to stop. Because that sin is never going to leave you. The wages of sin is death. Romans 6:23. For the wages of sin is death. There is nothing that we can do to cleanse ourselves by humanly desires. There's no technology we have, no AI, no kindness, no serving. There's nothing that we can do. Those are methods of making yourselves a better disciple and a better believer. Those are methods. But what we're looking for is the key. We're looking for that key that'll flip that lock and open it and let us free from that slavery into sin. That's what we need. And that's where it leads me to my second set of verses, which is verses 10 through 11. Paul says, I want to know Christ. Yes, to know the power of his resurrection and participation in his sufferings, becoming like him in his death, and so somehow attaining to the resurrection from the dead. So he's saying, I want to experience the power of Christ through death and resurrection, through death, so I can lay my old self to rest. That way my old habits, my old ways of life, my old, speakings and sayings and, relationships, they can all die. They can all go. Because there's nothing that I can do myself to say, well, I'm just going to forget about them. Like, I'm just going to, throw them into the fire and hope they go away. I'm just going to put them in the back of my head, and hopefully I don't have to pull from back here for anything. No, it's literally killing this version of yourself. And it's not saying that you're killing a physical person, but you are saying my old habits and my old ways of life have to die. So that way Christ can be resurrected through me as I become a new person in Christ. A new person. Christ dwells in me. And while he dwells in me, he builds me up. He takes my pieces, these broken puzzle pieces, and puts me back together and makes me into who I'm supposed to be. Makes me into that image that God created me to be from the beginning. Think back to Genesis. God made man in his own image. He made man in his own image. But we, through our fleshly desires and sinful nature, break that apart. And when we question God, why is this happening to me? God, why do you feel so distant from me? God, why are you allowing these things to happen? Why are you letting this happen to me? It's not that God isn't willing to help you. It's not that God broke you apart. It's that you are choosing to reject him and break yourself off and go into the darkness and say, God, you're the God of, you're all knowing, you're all powerful. Where's my flashlight? Like, you're supposed to help me. Like, where's my flashlight? But it's not about where's the flashlight. You're looking for the light of the world. And the only light of the world is God. And that's what we need to look for. Verse 13, the last part of the verse 13 through 14, Paul says, forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead, I press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. We can't let what controls us, and we can't let what happened in the past control us. We only must look for what's ahead. Because when we look ahead, we are able to, make those goals and set out a plan to say, okay, I'm going to do this today, and just kind of put that into a routine and a pattern to continue it over time. Timing's key. Things happen over time. And we must be willing to trust that whatever God has planned for us will come into play. And it may take some time. And because when we reflect on there's a difference between reflecting on your past and, just simply, just thinking about it. When you reflect on your past, you are saying, okay, this happened. Here's my response. Whereas when you're thinking about it, you're thinking, this happened. Here's how I feel. It's not about how you feel about your past. It's your response. How are you going to move forward? How are you going to lay your next card on the table to say, okay, I'm going to either draw 4 or I'm going to change the whole game. Think of Uno, for example. You have these cards in your hands, of different colors. You have green, red, blue, and yellow. And you get to a point where you can say, okay, I'm down to these two cards. You have a wild card and a draw 4 card. You can either, or actually, think of it like this. You have a wild card in your hand. You have the ability to change the whole game, or you can skip and keep drawing cards. Keep picking up more. You can keep picking up. Or think of it as someone lays a draw 4. You know that the other person has a draw 4. I know I'm going off topic, but the wild card in Uno has the ability to change the whole aspect. Someone may have had all green cards. Now you just laid a red. They can't do anything. It's the same thing with life. When you change your game, when you change the type of person that you are, it's not about you going and changing, your physical appearance, maybe not like plastic surgery or anything, but it's about you changing the way you view others and you view other situations. So where you take a step back. Sometimes in life, you have to take a step back before you take a step forward. And that makes it confusing. You're like, well, isn't in life you're supposed to always look forward? Yes, but there's a difference. You don't look back. You take a step back. There's a difference. Looking back would be like turning your head completely around. Taking a step back is simply taking your front foot and just backing it up. You're still looking forward. You are still looking at what's ahead. Only difference is you're a step back further. But here's the benefit. Now you get to see, okay, here's where I was. Here's the other way. Here's where I can go to make it better. Here's where I can take this next step to say, okay, I'm going to go this way. I was there and it was going to lead me down this dark path. You see that. You see that dark, foresty horror of lifestyle that you were going to go. And you caught yourself. You caught it. It is because of Christ. Christ stepped in your life. You accepted. You said, Christ, help me. Christ, forgive me. Please cleanse me. Make me right. And you took a step back and you said, okay, now I'm back to 0. Now I have to get out of the negatives and go in the positives. And this brings me to my last set of verses 15b, so a little bit after verse 15 into 16. Let's go back up real quick. I hope that example makes sense to you. Paul says, and if at some point you think differently, that too God will make clear to you. Only let us live to what we have already attained. So this is a really empowering verse that Paul says. And one of the big takeaways that I myself took from it was that you can't live from what you have not learned. You can't try and take a certain principle or a certain lifestyle or a certain discipline that you don't understand and try and apply it to your life. You can't take, a certain, weight at the gym that you've never used before. If you usually press, 60-pound dumbbells on the bench, you can't pick up the hundreds and expect to do the same amount of reps. You just can't. Why? Because you're not there yet. You have to build yourself up over time. You have to be willing to take those little steps over time, just over and over and over. Next thing you know, you're there. You don't even know it. You're already there. In time, you will come to understand how and why. And what I mean by that is there's a how and there's a why. So how God made it happen? Well, it was through these experiences he put you through. And why? Because back then you weren't ready. You couldn't handle it. A lot of times we ask God, why is this not happening to me? Well, most of the time it's, can you handle it? Can you really picture yourself in this situation where you can say, I got it? Can you really pick up that cross and say, I've got it? Because if you can't, then maybe it's time you start training. Maybe it's time you start practicing, saying, okay, I'm gonna start from, this little corner so I can eventually get to the middle. I'm gonna start here. And eventually I'll slowly get up to here. And sometimes it's not a calendar set routine. It's not something that's just planned out to say, okay, in 30 days you'll get it. It's a 30-day plan. Okay, at the end of the month you'll get it. Like, no, it's not really like a set date. It's just timing plays out. Maybe a week, maybe a month, a few months. It doesn't matter. trust in God, and He will make it happen. And that is the end of today's word. I hope you guys had a great Sunday, great Palm Sunday. I encourage you to just really just lay your burdens out to Christ. If you're going through something, I promise He will answer them. I promise you, He will answer them, and He will provide you with a way to stand tall, stand firm, and be confident. I hope you guys have a great week. I hope you guys have a great time each day this week. Enjoy the weather, get outside, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Peace out, boys.